one team to go in my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason, guys. This is the final team I am previewing and predicting. And honestly, what a way to end off these predictions. As UTSA, you can make the case was one of the better group of 5 teams last year. But first, before we dive into this video, guys, I want to appreciate you for sticking with me throughout this entire thing. If you were here from the beginning, you jumped in midway, or this is the very first video you're seeing of mine, I appreciate you guys watching my prediction videos. And hey, if there's a team that you're curious on knowing about, go ahead and you can hear my thoughts. I've done every single team. And we're moving on to the UTSA Roadrunners. One of the surprises in the group of 5 last year. In fact, they almost had an undefeated season before an end-of-the-year loss at North Texas. Now, this is going to be a very good UTSA team coming into this year, and they may even be a little underrated coming into this next season. However, this is a much tougher schedule than what they played last year. So can UTSA find their way back to a conference championship game and win the conference for the second straight year? Or is UTSA going to take a step back after losing a lot of their bigger pieces? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, and this is my final team. So, again, if there's any team that you want to know about, hit the subscribe button. You got to ring the bell because I do videos during the season too, but look through my channel. I got playlists to where you can find your favorite team or a team that may interest you. For fans of the UTSA Roadrunners out there, you guys will know this team a lot more than I do. So if you feel like I missed something and you want to add something, please leave that in the comment section down below. Be more than happy to hear what you guys have to say. So let us talk about UTSA in 2022. They are my top-ranked team in Conference USA coming into the 2022 college football season, because last year, I mean, what a story this team was. 12-2 was their record last year. 8-1 in conference play. This team was amazing a season ago. Amazing. This was a very, very, very good football team in 2022, and they have the stats to prove it and to back it up. Offensively, this team had 442 yards per game with 37 points per game. In my opinion, they were the second best offense in the conference last year. Of course, it's easy to say that when you have Western Kentucky in that conference as well, but that was a really good offense last year, and it has a lot coming back. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And it was a solid defense last year. I mean, they allowed 363 yards per game and only allowed 23.6 points per game. So this was a good Roadrunners team, offensively, defensively, any way you slice it. The UTSA Roadrunners were just a good football team last year. And taking a look at the talent they've lost, this team does not lose as much offensively as some people may think. Now, Joe Adkins was the backup quarterback last year, and he was the backup quarterback last year, threw 33 passes, completed 18 of them for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. So in his playing time, the limited playing time he has, he was fairly solid for this UTSA team, but they do have their starter coming back. We'll talk about him in a little bit. The big loss that's gotten everyone talking about for UTSA this year is the loss of Sincere McCormick, and what a name. And what a player he was for UTSA over his career. Had 298 rushes for 1,479 yards and 15 touchdowns for the Roadrunners last year. You were also losing B.J. Daniels, who was that 4th leading rusher last year, 199 yards and a touchdown last year, but no loss bigger on the offensive end than Sincere McCormick. They will have to replace him. And you know what? They are getting a guy. We'll talk about him later. In the wide receiver end of things, well, Cade Stover is gone at 89 yards. No touchdowns last year, sadly for him. And a tight end that's going to be moving to the offensive line in the NFL in Leroy Watson, who had 65 catches for 1 touchdown last year. Don't know if he played any offensive line for this UTSA team, but speaking of offensive line, they are losing Spencer Buford off of that line. Taking a look at the defensive side of the ball, well, a lot of talent is gone here. Jalen Haynes, Clarence Hicks, and Charles Wiley. Hicks, 10.5 sacks. Wiley, 3.5 sacks last year. So you're losing some of your top sack leaders. In fact, Clarence Hicks, 10.5 sacks, led this team by a wide margin. Also, Jalen Haynes, of course, gone off the defensive line. When you look elsewhere, linebacking group, Denzel Feaster is gone. He was a pretty key part of this defense last year. 41 tackles, was the 6th leading tackler on this team. And then DeQuarius Henry is also going to be gone off of the linebacking group. Had a sack and a half with 15 tackles last year. And then the defensive back position, Tariq Woolen, Antonio Park, and Jamal Sam. A couple names that you will see gone out of this defensive backfield. Probably none bigger than Tariq Woolen, although only 25 tackles. Did have 5 pass defended and an interception last year as well. You could make a case on why he was their best defensive back last season. Let's talk about what this team has coming back, because this team has a lot returning offensively. Yes, Sincere McCormick is a big loss, but they still have some really solid players still there. Frank Harris is the starting quarterback, and he was really, really good for this team last year. 3,177 yards, 27 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, had a 66% completion percentage. He's going to be really good again for the Roadrunners in 2022. Make no mistake about it. And while you do have, and also Frank Harris, second leading rusher last year, 566 yards and 6 touchdowns, so definitely can prove to be a dual threat quarterback. You have Brendan Brady coming back in the running back room at 308 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. Okay, he would have been a solid enough option to come in for Sincere McCormick. But no. UTSA went out and got a guy, Traylon Smith, over from Arkansas. Had a pretty good season with the Razorbacks last year. Originally was going to go over to TCU, now coming over to UTSA, and will be that primary back in replacement of Sincere McCormick. Don't know if he's going to put up Sincere McCormick-like stats, but man, what a name UTSA went out and got to replace their star at the running back position. In the wide receiver room, well, I mean, the gains just keep getting bigger. Zachary Franklin is coming back, was the leading receiver last year at 1,027 yards, 12 touchdowns, and in my opinion, the best receiver on this team. But you also have guys like Joshua Cephas and DeCorian Clark, who were your second and third leading receivers last year. Both of them over 750 yards. Cephas with 6 touchdowns, Clark with 7. And you also returned the tight end, Oscar Cardenas, who was the 4th leading receiver. So your top 4 leading receivers come back. There are depth guys that return for this team as well, but those 4 names are going to be key threats again in the passing attack for UTSA. On the defensive side, again, you do lose a lot of names off the defensive side, but I think this defense is still going to be pretty solid. You got guys like Osiris Simon, Trumaine Bell coming back on the defensive line, Brandon Matterson also coming back on the defensive line. Now Trumaine Bell, 5 sacks last year. That was second on the team. In the linebacker group, Trevor Harmonson, who was the 3rd leading tackler last year, had 56 tackles and an interception, which he returned for a touchdown. Jamal Ligon, and then Dadrian Taylor coming back as well at the linebacker position. In the defensive backside, well, Rashad Wisdom led this team in tackles last year at 87 of them. 6 pass defended as well, was tied for the team lead with Ken Robinson, who had 41 tackles, also 6 pass defended. Corey Mayfield's another name that is coming back. He had 3 passes defended with 2 interceptions last season. So really good talent still coming back for this team. Offensively, defensively, this is going to be another good football team in 2022. Make no mistake about it. As we take a look at the UTSA schedule, now definitely a lot tougher of a non-conference slate than they had last year. You do have the home game against Texas Southern, which you should be able to win. But the 3 games before that, I mean, man, UTSA is going to have a tough time of it this year. Don't be surprised if UTSA starts off 1-2 or 0-3. This team is going to be, they've definitely regressed this year. That's going to be what people say, but look at who they're playing. You got a home game against Houston, who may very well prove to be the best team in the group of 5 this year. Then you got road games against Army and Texas. Army, I think, can have a 10-win season this year. I think they have the talent to do it. In Texas, they've added too much to not improve from previous seasons. In conference play, you have road games against Middle Tennessee, FIU, UAB, and Rice. Games at home against Western Kentucky, North Texas, Louisiana Tech, and UTEP. So diving into the schedule a little bit for UTSA, Texas Southern should be a simple enough win for this team. But the rest of that non-conference slate, again, like I just mentioned not even 30 seconds ago, I mean, wow, what a tough 3 games UTSA has to start out. I think they'll end up winning one of them, and it'll more likely come against the likes of Houston or Army. I mean, look, either 3 of those teams are going to be hard games for UTSA to win. I do think this team has good enough talent to win one of them. Houston, though, may very well prove to be the best team in the group of 5. They return guys like Nathaniel Dell at wide receiver, Clayton Toombs coming back at the running back. Even though he's hurt, Alton McCaskill is still there at the running back position. Hopefully he's ready to go by week 1, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be the case. Otherwise, Army, that's a team that I feel like can win 10 games this year. And Texas, again, that's a team that's just added too much talent to not get better this upcoming season. Now, quarterback play and the line of scrimmage are some big questions for Texas, but UTSA on the road, that's going to be a hard game for them to win in Austin. When you take a look at the rest of the schedule, speaking about conference play here, Middle Tennessee, FIU, Rice, even games like Louisiana Tech should be simple enough wins for this UTSA team. Neither of those teams I have making a bowl game this upcoming season. for Middle Tennessee. I think they lose a lot in that secondary. Rice, FIU, I just don't think are going to be that great. And Louisiana Tech are going to be competitive, but UTSA gets them at home this upcoming season. Now, when you take a look at the rest of the schedule, I think games like Western Kentucky, UTEP, North Texas, those games are going to provide their respective challenges to this UTSA team, but they get all three of them at home, and home field advantage is going to be huge for this UTSA team, as I think this crowd is really going to get involved in this program this year if they didn't already last year. But the game of the year in Conference USA may very well be that game right there on the road against UAB. Now, UTSA does come off a bye in that game, so they do get an extra week of rest and preparation for that UAB team. We'll see what happens there. Now, I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based Alec tell me predict the team's record. So if the game's in red, just don't see you winning the game. Are no games in red on the schedule, UTSA is going to be good enough to win any game they play this year. Orange, well, you're still probably not going to win the game, but it is college football and upsets can happen. Yellow are your 50-50 or high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but watch out for the team on the other side of the ball. And games in green, I do have you winning. So, games in orange. Houston and Texas. Houston is going to be a hard matchup to win. Yes, UTSA gets them at home, and that's going to be a huge game for both teams. But, and I think Houston, in order to have a good shot at a New Year's Six Bowl game, they're going to have to win this game here, and it's not going to be an easy win. Again, UTSA's got a lot coming back on offense, and this defense, while this Houston offense may end up exploiting some holes that UTSA has early, which I think is why Houston is the favorite here in this game, this UTSA offense is going to put up points. But the Houston offense can put up points as well. I think that's a very, very interesting game to watch, but I lean the way of the Cougars. I lean the way of the Longhorns for all the reason I've said earlier. Again, it's a Power 5 team. There's one reason, but this UTSA, one of the better group of 5 teams, but Texas has added too much talent to not get better. Army is, I think, the most winnable game in non-conference besides Texas Southern. They're obviously going to win that game. Army is a team that, again, runs a style of football sort of like the triple option. In fact, that's probably what it is. But Army, I think, has a lot of talent on this team this year, and I think Army can win 9-10 games this year. In fact, I think I have them at 9-3. So all three of those non-conference games are going to be hard for UTSA. But digging in the conference play again, Middle Tennessee, FIU, Rice, maybe even Louisiana Tech, I think are going to be some solid wins for UTSA. Louisiana Tech can provide their respective challenges, though, much like UTEP and Western Kentucky. UTEP, that's an underrated team coming into this year. I think they have a great chance to go bowling again. And then Western Kentucky there as well. They have to replace a lot on the offensive end. But I still feel like that's going to be a solid Western Kentucky team. Although all those games, I do think UTSA will be able to pull out and get the win more likely than not. Now, looking at the games, the 2 conference games in yellow. North Texas, I feel like, is my sleeper team in Conference USA this year. If there's a team like UTSA last year that's going to explode in this conference, I think North Texas may very well be it, because now UTSA's proven themselves. UAB's done it for the past couple of years. Western Kentucky kind of did it last year as well with that dynamic offense, but now that's gone. I think North Texas has a lot of good pieces. But again, UAB possibly could be a preview of the conference championship game matchup right there. What makes this game interesting is, yes, UAB gets it at home, but UTSA is coming off an extra week of rest and extra week of preparation. Going to be a very interesting game to watch. Now, taking a look at this schedule for UTSA, again, it's a tough non-conference slate, and there are some very interesting games in conference. I got this team taking a step back record-wise from where they were a year ago, but, I mean, this offense, I think, is still going to be good. I think this defense is still going to be pretty solid as well. Let me tell you kind of why I have 9-3. I do think they will drop a game in conference play. More likely, it'll be that road game to UAB. But when I take a look at non-conference, I mean, look, there is just no shot that this team goes undefeated through non-conference. I'm sorry, UTSA fans, but you got some tough games. I have them splitting Houston Army so they win one or the other, and then more likely than not, I have that drop to Texas, losing a game in conference play as well. So that's what gets me 9-3. I think this team is good enough, though, to have another 11-1 season. This team is that good, is that talented. I think they can do it again. UTSA may very well be the best team in this conference for the second year in a row. So that's going to do it for my prediction on the UTSA Roadrunners. Make sure you guys leave a like, comment, subscribe. I post videos during the season as well, and we are done with predictions. Conference USA recap coming up, and then we'll move into some more off-season work. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.